The Indian Railways is transforming with focus on greater connectivity and modernization. That was the essence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's address, while flagging off 8 trains facilitating seamless rail connectivity to the Statue of Unity in Kevadia. We'll take a deeper look at how Indian Railways is transforming with self-reliance and high-speed capabilities and is giving a boost to tourism and employment generation in the process. Our In Focus tonight is transforming the face of Indian Railways. I'm Munnu Bhattacharya. Let's get started with the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi flags off 8 trains facilitating seamless rail connectivity to the Statue of Unity in Kevadia. Says the rail link will benefit both the tourists and local tribals, as this will bring new avenues of employment, points to efforts made to modernize railways and a new approach to developing railway infrastructure. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to perform a Bhumi Pujan of Ahmedabad Metro Rail Project Phase 2 and Surat Metro Rail Project on Monday via video conferencing. Metro projects will provide an environment-friendly mass rapid transit system to these cities. On day 2 of COVID-19 vaccination drive, 6 states conduct vaccination sessions. Over 17,000 beneficiaries vaccinated, taking the total number of beneficiaries over 2 days to more than 2.24 lakh. First day of vaccination drive in India saw the highest number of people being inoculated in the world on Saturday. Minor adverse events reported in some recipients. On second day of his Karnataka visit, Union Home Minister Amit Shah lashes out at the Congress for seeking to draw political mileage from farmers' protests, questions aid for not giving farmers 6,000 rupees cash support when in power, says new farm laws will help farmers double their income. Amit Shah also targets the opposition for misleading people on India's COVID-19 vaccines, assures that they are safe. Before the next round of talks with farmers, Union Minister for Agriculture Narendra Singh Tomar says that suggestions apart from the repeal of the new farm laws are welcome and the government will consider them with an open mind. Questions the farmers for continuing with the agitation despite Apex Court's order staying their implementation. Says farmers can take up their issues with a court-appointed committee. Indian tail provides the sting as tail-ender batsmen defy Aussie attack to retrieve the situation for Team India. India scores 336 in the first innings. Australia extend the first innings lead of 33 runs to 54 by the end of play on third day. On the second day of IFFI, Indian Panorama begins with Gujarati film Panchika. Section on renowned Indian filmmaker Satyajit Ray opens with his all-time classic Pather Panchali. High Commissioner of Bangladesh to India recalls 50 years of relations between the two nations as section of the focus country Bangladesh opens. And North India continues to shiver under a spell of intense cold wave. A heavy fog adds to the misery of people as visibility reduces in many cities. Heavy snowfall throws life out of gear in many nations in Europe and Asia. Straight to our top focus tonight. If you wish to take a train to the Statue of Unity in Kevadia in Gujarat, you have several options now, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi flagging off 8 trains facilitating seamless connectivity to it. The Prime Minister also dwelt on how Kevadia is now a major tourist attraction, with more than 50 lakh visitors coming to see the Statue of Unity after it was dedicated to the nation, a trend that is only catching on. He also spoke on how rail connectivity to Kevadia exemplifies the modern face of railways, which is green, self-reliant and high-speed capabilities, and gives a momentum to tourism and employment generation.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi flagged off 8 trains facilitating seamless rail connectivity to the Statue of Unity in Kevadia, Gujarat via video conferencing. The Prime Minister said that perhaps for the first time in the history of the railways, trains were flagged off for the same destination from different corners of the country. He explained that this is because of the importance of Kevadia as the home to the Statue of Unity and Sardar Sarovar. He said that the event exemplifies the vision of the railways and the mission of Sardar Patel. Recalling that when Kevadia was proposed as a major tourist destination, it used to appear like a pipe dream. But now Kevadia is no longer just a small block in some remote area. It has developed into one of the biggest tourist destinations of the world. He pointed to how the new chapter in the development of Kevadia will benefit both tourists and local tribals, as this will bring new avenues of self-employment and employment.
ये कनेक्टिविटी सुविधा के साथ साथ रोजगार और स्वरोजगार के नए अवसर भी लेकर आएगी। ये रेल लाइन मां नर्मदा के तट पर बसे करनाली, पोइचा और गरुड़ेश्वर जैसे आस्था से जुड़े महत्वपूर्ण स्थानों को भी कनेक्ट करेगी।
Prime Minister underlined the change in approach in the railways infrastructure development in recent times, saying that the change has led to unprecedented progress in modernization of the Indian railways.
आजादी के बाद हमारी ज्यादातर ऊर्जा पहले से जो रेल व्यवस्था थी उसको ठीक ठाक करने या सुधारने में ही लगी रही। उस दौरान नई सोच और नई टेक्नोलॉजी पर फोकस कम ही रहा। ये अप्रोच बदली जानी बहुत जरूरी थी और इसलिए बीते सालों में देश में रेलवे के पूरे तंत्र में व्यापक बदलाव करने के लिए काम किया। ये काम सिर्फ बजट बढ़ाना, घटाना, नई ट्रेनों की घोषणाएं करना यहां तक सीमित नहीं रहा। ये परिवर्तन अनेक मोर्चों पर एक साथ हुआ है।
Prime Minister asserted that there is a dual focus on connecting unconnected regions through the railways. He said that speed and broad gauging and electrification have gained momentum and tracks are being prepared for higher speed, enabling running of semi-high-speed trains.
रेलवे के तेजी से आधुनिकीकरण का एक बड़ा कारण रेलवे मैन्युफैक्चरिंग और रेलवे टेक्नोलॉजी में आत्मनिर्भरता पर हमारा बल है, हमारा फोकस है। बीते सालों में इस दिशा में जो काम हुआ उसका परिणाम अब धीरे धीरे हमारे सामने दिख रहा है। अब सोचिए, अगर हम भारत में हाई हॉर्स पावर के इलेक्ट्रिक लोकोमोटिव नहीं बनाते तो क्या दुनिया की पहली डबल ट्रैक लॉन्ग होल कंटेनर ट्रेन क्या भारत चला पाता? आज भारत में ही बनी एक से एक आधुनिक ट्रेनें भारतीय रेल का हिस्सा है।
Prime Minister also inaugurated the Dabhoi-Chandod gauge converted broad gauge railway line, Chandod-Kevadia new broad gauge railway line, newly electrified Pratap Nagar Kevadia section, and the new station buildings of Dabhoi, Chandod and Kevadia. Local designs have been incorporated in these buildings and modern passenger amenities have been provided. The Prime Minister also pointed out that it is being ensured that the railways remains environment friendly and gave the example of Kevadia Station, India's first railway station to start with green building certification. The Prime Minister also said that Kevadia Station has been developed with growing tourism in mind. It has tribal art gallery and viewing gallery from where Statue of Unity can be glimpsed. He said that apart from the traditional role of passenger and goods transportation, the railways is giving direct connectivity to places of tourism and of religious importance. He also drew attention to how many routes including Ahmedabad-Kevadia, Janshatabdi are set to have attractive Vista Dome coaches, estimating that as connectivity improves, about 1 lakh visitors per day are expected in Kevadia. The Prime Minister stressed on how Kevadia is a good example of planned development of the economy and ecology while protecting the environment. Newsnight Desk, TD India.
Let's now take a look at the seamless railway connectivity to Kevadia. Remember, Kevadia is in Gujarat and it's been put on the world map with the Statue of Unity standing tall there. Statue of Unity is dedicated to India's first Home Minister, Sardar Patel. Well, Mahamana Express, a weekly train, was one of the 8 trains that Prime Minister Narendra Modi flagged off. It moves from Kevadia to Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh. So that is only the first one. There are 7 more to go, with the Prime Minister flagging off all in all 8 trains connecting various places to Kevadia in Gujarat. Let's take a look at the second one, Dadar Kevadia Express. This is also going to be a daily train, and there you are looking at connectivity between Kevadia and Dadar in Mumbai. So there is all-round connectivity in a sense that 8 trains will be providing to Kevadia in Gujarat. Extremely important now on the world stage with the Statue of Unity there standing tall. Another one from Ahmedabad in Gujarat to Kevadia. So this is intra-state connectivity within the state. Jan Shatabdi Express is going to run daily from Ahmedabad in Gujarat to Kevadia. This is only the 3rd one. Let's take a look at the 4th one now. Nizamuddin Kevadia Sampark Kranti Express, a bi-weekly train. This too is going to connect Kevadia with Delhi, where Hazrat Nizamuddin station is. So this is the 4th train out of 8 that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had flagged off. Kevadia Rewa Express weekly. From the name itself, you can understand that this is going to connect Kevadia to Rewa in Madhya Pradesh. The 5th train out of 8 that Prime Minister Narendra Modi flagged off in order to ensure seamless railway connectivity to Kevadia. Let's take a look at the other trains that Prime Minister flagged off. And Chennai Kevadia Express, a weekly train. This is going to provide connectivity from Chennai in Tamil Nadu to Kevadia in Gujarat. So you're looking at Kevadia being connected from southern India, from other parts of India as well. A Memu train is going to run daily, and that is going to run from Pratapnagar in Gujarat to Kevadia in Gujarat. So this again will provide intra-state connectivity in Gujarat. The 7th train that Prime Minister Narendra Modi flagged off. Now, the last train that was flagged off by Prime Minister to provide seamless connectivity to Kevadia in Gujarat, and that again was a Memo train, a daily train, which too will provide connectivity between Pratapgarh in Gujarat to Kevadia. So 8 trains all in all flagged off by Prime Minister Narendra Modi today via video conferencing. Prime Minister saying that Kevadia is no longer a remote town in a remote place in Gujarat, but it is something which is now one of the biggest attractions the world over for tourists, and we are looking at a lot of transformation happening as far as that is concerned. In Phase 2 Ahmedabad Metro Rail project, it is 28.25 kilometers long with 2 corridors, and Corridor 1 is 22.8 kilometers long. Prime Minister is going to do Bhumi Pujan of the Ahmedabad Metro Rail project Phase 2 on Monday. Corridor 1 from Motera Stadium to Mahatma Mandir. And the Corridor 2 is 5.4 kilometers long. Prime Minister will be performing Bhumi Pujan of the Ahmedabad Metro Rail project Phase 2. Corridor 2 is from JNLU to Gift City. So this again is an awaited announcement by Prime Minister. Completion cost of Phase 2 project is 5,384 crore rupees. And now the Surat Metro Rail project, where also the Prime Minister will be doing Bhumi Pujan for. It is 40.35 kilometers long. Project comprises 2 corridors. We'll tell you about both the corridors in just a bit. The Corridor 1 is 21.61 kilometers long. And there is Corridor 1 which will run from Sarthana to Dream City. So this is about Corridor 1 of Surat Metro Rail project. Now focusing on Corridor 2, it is 18.74 kilometers long and is from Bhesan to Saroli. The completion cost of the project is 12,020 crore rupees. So this is the next big announcement that India is going to wait for. That happens tomorrow. We'll take a break at this point in time. After the break, we'll discuss the transforming face of Indian Railways. Stay tuned.
वैश्विक महामारी कोविड-19, जिसका कहर संपूर्ण मानव जाति को अपनी आगोश में ले चुका है। टीका या दवाई उपलब्ध होने तक महामारी के खिलाफ मानवता की जंग जारी है। अब जब अनलॉक 5 के तहत लगभग सारा देश खुल गया है, तब और भी आवश्यक है कि हम सतर्क रहें। ऐसे में सबसे जरूरी है समझदारी और बचाव। फेस मास्क कोरोना से रोकथाम का सबसे प्रभावी उपाय साबित हुआ है। विश्व स्वास्थ्य संगठन और विशेषज्ञों के शोध का भी यही निष्कर्ष है कि मास्क से मुंह और नाक को अच्छी तरह ढककर कोरोना संक्रमण को कम किया जा सकता है। मास्क पहनने से आप कोरोना से अपना और आसपास के लोगों का भी बचाव करते हैं। कोरोना संक्रमण से बचाव के लिए मास्क पहनने के साथ ही जरूरी है मास्क को सही तरीके से पहनना। बहुत से लोग मास्क से नाक और मुंह को सही तरीके से नहीं ढकते, जिससे संक्रमण का खतरा बना रहता है।
बिना मास्क या फेस कवर के घर से बाहर निकलने की अभी कल्पना करना भी सही नहीं है।
जुड़िए डीडी न्यूज की खास मुहिम मास्क अप इंडिया के साथ। कोरोना से बचाव की इस पहल का हिस्सा बनने के लिए साझा कीजिए मास्क पहनने के अपने अनुभव, अपने विचार हमारे साथ फेसबुक और ट्विटर पर।
मास्क अप इंडिया
डीडी न्यूज के माध्यम से सबको बताना है, कोरोना को हराना है, मास्क जरूर लगाना है।
मास्क अप इंडिया,
मास्क अप इंडिया,
मास्क अप इंडिया।
Welcome back. You're watching News Night, and our in focus tonight is the transforming face of Indian Railways. To discuss that, we are joined by Ashutosh Gangal. He is General Manager, Northern Railways, and Pranab Sarkar. He is President, Indian Association of Tour Operators. I welcome you both to News Night. I'll begin with you, Dr. Gangal. We know that the Prime Minister today flagged off 8 trains ensuring seamless railway connectivity to Kevadia. What was the kind of effort that went into this, and does this exemplify the modern and transforming face of Indian Railways?
Kevadia connectivity was sanctioned in the month of May 2018. So, and the work on it started after some time after the tendering process, and it has been completed in a period of only about 20 months, which is very, very fast progress considering the nature of the work. When you consider that there is 34 kilometers of line from Pratapnagar in Vadodara to Dabhoi, which was there but which needed to be upgraded and electrified. The connectivity between Dabhoi to Chandod existed in narrow gauge. It had to be changed to broad gauge and electrified, and there was no connectivity between Chandod and Kevadia. Kevadia is a station about 5 kilometers, roughly 5 kilometers from the Statue of Unity. And this line had to be made afresh. The pace of execution can be gauged from the fact that the last patch of land became available as late as July of 2020. So the progress in this project has been exemplary. This project has been executed by my sister zone, Western Railway. They have done an excellent job in this project.
Yes.
The connectivity to Kevadia will spur a lot of development and tourism, will unleash the tourism potential of the region. It will also provide flexibility and feasibility to travel directly to Kevadia from all parts of the country. So it is indeed an exemplary effort which has been successfully completed in a record time.
Absolutely. You are flagging the aspect of tourism and how this is going to get a boost with such railway connectivity now being in place with Kevadia. Well, Mr. Sarkar, I'll take your views on this. Weigh in on how this project is an example of how development should take place, keeping in mind certain key factors like employment generation and tourism potential.
Yes, in any case, connectivity is the most important part for any tourist destination, and this government has shown the example of creating Kevadia as the new station and location for the tourism destination, and Statue of Unity is the unique tourism spot, and this is not going to develop the local economy, but also it will develop the economy of the far-flung places from where the tourists are going to generate. And it is going to help the location, not only this location, but also when a tourist travel by train, they are traveling not only for 2 days or 3 days, they will spend at least 1 week and 10 days. Therefore, entire Gujarat is going to get the benefit, and tourists will not only visit Kevadia but also the nearby destinations and continue their visits. And tourism, as Prime Minister also said, that it is an economic activity and this is going to create a number of jobs at the lowest investment, and which is going to be the exemplary here that this area will be developed very fast. And tourism is the only place where once the tourist starts coming, the local investments also start coming in, which creates a lot of jobs, which is the key factor in this region. And the kind of development it has been made there, it is an international venue, and I think that after this the international tourists will also flock in to see the highest statue of the world, and I'm sure the kind of facilities Gujarat is going to provide, they will also enjoy, and this will be spread all along. And already the visitors number has already gone past the world's highest tourist spot, but I think our Prime Minister said per day 1 lakh tourists to come. I am sure that if it is happening, then we have to come forward and gear up for the situation to handle them. So they get a positive note, and railways have done a fantastic job, and with Vistadome tourist coaches and other facilities,
fair enough,
showing that India is progressing towards the model India.
Absolutely. Mr. Gangal, how has that transformation been brought about from an era when the focus was on announcing new trains in the rail budget and keeping all those announcements just on paper, to now when we are looking at various flagship projects now moving ahead, like the Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor and the Western Dedicated Freight Corridor?
In the last few years, the focus has been on completing the projects in a speedy manner. This has required extensive planning, followed by an emphasis on execution. This execution is achieved by ensuring that there is uninterrupted supply of funds for the prioritized projects. So it is important that we set the priorities, we identify the projects that meet our requirements in the best possible manner, and then we ensure that those projects are completed in a speedy manner by overcoming whatever hurdles arise in the path of execution. So this strategy has yielded good results. As you can see, the last about 10-15 days have seen the Honorable Prime Minister flagging off trains on the Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor, followed by another flagging off on the Western Dedicated Freight Corridor. On the manufacturing front also, as the Honorable Prime Minister had mentioned in his address in the morning, the manufacturing has really been the focus. And the Indian Railways has managed to ramp up its capacity in the production units in a big way. The production units, which were hard-pressed to manufacture maybe about 3,000 coaches, are now manufacturing more than double that number, and are also manufacturing the LHB design coaches, which were earlier being manufactured in very small numbers.
So has India arrived as far as Atmanirbhar Bharat is concerned then, Mr. Gangal, in the railway sector?
Order book of the production units, which is also going to enable Indian Railways to phase out the ICF design of coaches, which were not so comfortable and not so well liked by the traveling public. Likewise, on the locomotive front, you have already seen that we are witnessing a march towards 100% electrification, which entails production of high horsepower electric locomotives.
Yes.
You might have already heard about the 12,000 horsepower locomotive, which will provide a great impetus in hauling of heavy trains, the likes of which you had seen when the Western Dedicated Freight Corridor was opened. So these are some of the measures that we have taken to ensure that our mobility and utilization of network is best. in the interest of overall, in the interest of consumers of the Indian Railways goods and services.
Mr. Sarkar, there are many forms of connectivity. One can go to a certain place through land, one can go by air, but is railways one of the most affordable and also one of the most feasible, because not everyone can afford air travel, and as far as land connectivity is concerned, there would be terrain issues, there would be time issues. So was this a great idea to connect Kevadia with so many rail links?
Yes, definitely, to connect all segments of our society and the citizens of India, it is going to be a very great support, and it is going to facilitate. And considering that Ministry of Tourism, Government of India has announced 2021 as domestic tourism year, and Gujarat Tourism is promoting in a big way, and we all are looking forward to give a big promotion for this area, and we see a very positive vibes that government is thinking this way, and this connectivity is going to benefit all segments of our society, and people will be free to travel, and it is very economical to travel and enjoy the tourism facilities of the area. So I feel this is a great initiative, and thanks to this government.
Mr. Gangal, Kevadia station is also India's first railway station to start with green building certification. Is Railways then focusing on making its operations environment friendly?
Yes, there is a lot of focus on making our operations environment friendly. We are trying to, the electrification is one part of the strategy. The other part of the strategy is ensuring that there is cleanliness all around. Swachh Bharat, Railways has taken a lot of efforts in making the stations clean. The bio toilets are another example where we have eliminated the waste which used to be there on the station, in the station area as also along the tracks. So yes, environment has to be our focus, and we are devoting all the possible efforts to ensure that we become the energy efficient. In this area, the Railways has also gone in a big way in solar electricity, so that while we are consuming electricity for traction purposes, part of it is at least generated by solar means, so that the carbon linkages are reduced.
Dr. Gangal, as part of Railways, all of you have a vision to have a transformed modern railway where high-speed trains run with a high safety record. Is India going to churn out specialist manpower or skilled manpower for meeting this goal?
There is a university which has been set up, which is called NRTI, National Rail Technical University, and this university is located in Vadodara, and it is already commenced its operations. It will definitely help us in creating manpower for future purposes. This emphasis on skills is one of the very key area in overall development of railways. And we are taking all these steps to ensure that we achieve the desired objectives out of this endeavor.
Absolutely. This seems to be just the beginning as far as such models are concerned in order to boost tourism as well as create several employment opportunities. Thank you so much, Mr. Gangal, as well as Mr. Sarkar, for having joined us on Newsnight tonight. Let's move on now. Sunday was day 2 of India's COVID-19 vaccination drive, and 6 states conducted the vaccination sessions, and in 553 sessions, a total of 17,072 beneficiaries were vaccinated. This took the total number of beneficiaries over 2 days of vaccination to 2,24,301 so far. Significantly, day 1 of the COVID-19 vaccination drive saw the highest number of people being inoculated in the world.
Day 2 of the vaccination drive against COVID-19 saw more health workers from across the country continue to get their first dose of the COVID vaccine. The drill was the same as on day 1. Inoculations done as per procedure. According to the Health Ministry, there were 553 sessions on Sunday in a total of 6 states, in which 17,072 beneficiaries were vaccinated.
To summarize, a total of 2,24,301 beneficiaries, out of which 2,07,229 of day 1 have been vaccinated till 17th January as per the provisional reports.
The vaccination process was by and large smooth. There were reports of a few technical problems and mild side effects or adverse events in some people in some places.
कोविड के टीकाकरण से संबंधित 447 AFIs रिपोर्ट हुई हैं और उनमें से केवल 3 को अस्पताल में भर्ती कराना पड़ा और उन 3 में से भी एक जो नॉर्दर्न रेलवे हॉस्पिटल दिल्ली में भर्ती हुए थे उन्हें डिस्चार्ज किया जा चुका है। इसी प्रकार दूसरे जो हमारे एम्स दिल्ली में भर्ती हुए थे उन्हें भी डिस्चार्ज किया जा चुका है और एक जो तीसरे एम्स ऋषिकेश में हैं वो हैं अस्पताल में और उनकी स्थिति अच्छी है, बेहतर है।
The first day of the nationwide COVID-19 vaccination program was a huge success. About 2,24,000 people have been vaccinated so far over the first 2 days, with more than 2,07,000 people being vaccinated on day 1, a world record. 2 types of COVID-19 vaccines have been supplied to the states. Serum Institute's Covishield has been supplied to all states and union territories, while Bharat Biotech's Covaxin has been supplied to 12 states. In Karnataka, frontline workers were inoculated at various government and private hospitals of the state on Sunday.
There will be some kind of apprehensions. In spite of all that, reaching 62% is a really good turnout according to me.
In Rajasthan, Dr. P.C. Dandia, a 94-year-old distinguished emeritus professor at SMS Medical College, Jaipur, was vaccinated and vouched for the complete safety of the vaccine.
जितने टीके हैं वो सभी सुरक्षित हैं और भारत के टीके जो बने हैं इनको भी उसी तरह के साइंटिस्ट ने बनाया है कि जो बहुत ऊंचे वैज्ञानिक हैं और इतनी बड़ी रिस्क लेते हैं और टीका लगाने का जो प्रयत्न कर रहे हैं वो बहुत सराहनीय है।
The whole country has put in place systems for dealing a decisive blow to the coronavirus through this massive inoculation drive. The government has hit back at the opposition for being critical about the vaccination drive.
हम लोगों ने कहा पहले कोरोना वॉरियर्स यानी जो डॉक्टर्स हैं और मेडिकल फ्रेटर्निटी है पहले उनको लगना चाहिए, क्योंकि कोरोना पेशेंट्स के साथ यदि किसी को जूझना पड़ता है तो उन्हें जूझना पड़ता है, उनके लिए पहले प्रिकॉशन आवश्यक है।
मोदी जी ने अब दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा वैक्सीनेशन का प्रोग्राम, टीकाकरण का कार्यक्रम हाथ में लिया है और ये कांग्रेस वाले टीके पर सवाल उठा रहे। अरे भाई, आप कुछ कर नहीं सकते वो तो हम जानते हैं, सिर्फ आप विरोध कर सकते हो, मगर कोई कर रहा है इसको क्यों रोकते हो? मैं देश की जनता को विश्वास दिलाने आया हूं, हमारे ही देश में बने हुए दोनों टीके पूर्णतः सुरक्षित है।
According to the World Health Organization, all adverse events need not be the result of the vaccination but related to other factors. All in all, the vaccination drive continues, and now more than 2,24,000 people have been immunized from the virus so far. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
On the second day of his visit to Karnataka, Union Home Minister Amit Shah reinforced the centre's commitment to double farmers' income. He lashed out at the Congress, asking why it could not give 6,000 rupees in cash support per year to farmers when it was in power. He also credited the Modi government at the centre with successfully completing many of those tasks that were left unattended by previous governments.
Union Home Minister Amit Shah inaugurated and laid the foundation stone of various farmer-friendly projects in Karnataka on Sunday. While addressing a rally, Shah launched a frontal attack on Congress. He also questioned the opposition party on why it could not give away Rs 6,000 cash support per year to the farmers. He also said that the new laws will lead to an increase in farmers' income and also reiterated centre's commitment to double farmers' income.
प्रधानमंत्री फसल बीमा योजना क्यों नहीं बनी भाई? जब आप थे, इथेनॉल की पॉलिसी में परिवर्तन क्यों नहीं आया? जब आप थे, तब बजट क्यों इतना छोटा था? जब आप थे, तो प्रधानमंत्री सिंचाई योजना क्यों नहीं लागू हुई? क्योंकि आपकी नीयत थी। नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार सात अर्थ में किसानों को समर्पित सरकार है और 3 नए जो अध्यादेश और कानून लेकर मोदी सरकार आई है, इससे किसानों की आय अनेक गुना बढ़ने वाली।
In his second engagement on Sunday, Amit Shah addressed the Jan Sevak Samavesh rally in Belgavi and recounted many achievements of the Modi government. He said that the Modi government successfully completed many of those tasks which were left unattended by earlier governments. He also said that the Prime Minister has always emphasized a self-reliant India, and if the 130 crore population of India becomes self-reliant and consumes only made-in-India products, then India will enter into the list of top economies of the world.
कोप्पल के अंदर सबसे पहला खिलौना क्लस्टर बन रहा है। हम सभी को आनंद होना चाहिए कि कोप्पल के खिलौने पूरे देश भर के बालक खेलेंगे और चीन से खिलौना लाने की हमें कोई जरूरत नहीं रहेगी।
While inaugurating the Advanced Stimulation Center of KLE Hospital in Belgavi, Amit Shah also appealed for support of BJP candidates in the upcoming Zilla and Taluka polls in the state.
कर्नाटक की जनता को मैं कहने आया हूं, तालुका पंचायत, जिला पंचायत में 75% से ज्यादा सीटें भारतीय जनता पार्टी को देकर आप राज्य के विकास का काम पूर्णतया भारतीय जनता पार्टी को सौंपिए।
Shah also visited late Sri Suresh Angari's home and met with his family while paying homage to the former Minister of State for Railways who lost his battle against COVID-19 in September last year. Bureau Report, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
The Indian Panorama section was inaugurated on the second day of the 51st International Film Festival of India in Goa. The special segment paying tribute to the legendary Satyajit Ray with the screening of his film Pather Panchali was also inaugurated. Here's more on all the action from IFFI in Goa.
Day 2 at the International Film Festival of India underway in Goa saw the inauguration of the Indian Panorama section with the screening of both feature and non-feature films. The opening film was Gujarati feature film Panchika, a heartwarming presentation about friendship between two 7-year-old girls.
तरीके से बात की गई है कि कैसे हम सामाजिक चीज़ों की वजह से, राजनीतिक चीज़ों की वजह से, धार्मिक चीज़ों की वजह से बच्चों पे या दूसरों पे या कोई इंडिविजुअल पे एक तरह का विचार डालते हैं जो उनको मानना पड़ेगा.
Sunday also saw the inauguration of the special segment paying tribute to legendary Satyajit Ray with the screening of his film Pather Panchali. The festival also paid homage to father of Indian cinema Dada Saheb Phalke on his 150th birth anniversary with the screening of a few of his works. The country of focus in this edition of IFFI is Bangladesh. High Commissioner of Bangladesh to India, Mohammad Imran, inaugurated the section and recalled the strong ties that two countries have shared for more than 50 years.
And thanks to the Government of India and to this organizers of 51st IFFI for selecting Bangladesh as a country of focus. And we are honored, and we know that we got our independence in 1971 after a 9-month war of liberation led by our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and this 2021 is our 50th anniversary of our independence.
The screening of films began with Another Round, the 2020 Danish comedy drama. It revolves around 4 friends and is directed by Thomas Winterberg. The 51st edition of International Film Festival of India is a significant event by itself, being organized in a hybrid format offering film enthusiasts both online and in-person experience. Rukma Datta's report from Goa, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
So it is day 2 of the 51st International Film Festival of India in Goa, and for further updates, let's go across to Gautam Roy in Goa. Gautam, get us more perspective from there.
Be careful, and people are 60, we are very vulnerable. Just be careful it doesn't go through your...
Well, thank you, Munmun. This is, as you said, the second day, and it's been a smashing opening just yesterday, and everything's been glowing like clockwork over here for the second day itself. We've had a lot of events. People who love films have been coming here physically to watch films as well, and they've been checking in the OTT format as well, because that's the kind of offering that IFFI has this time as well. Despite the pandemic, all precautions are being taken and events are taking place without any hitch at all. Now, to talk about what is really IFFI all about, we have a panel of guests with us. We have John Matthew Mutton, he's chairperson, feature film Indian Panorama jury. We've got Sandeep Kumar, who's a filmmaker, and he's written the story for his film as well, Mehrun-Nisa. It's an Austrian-Indian production. We'll talk to Sandeep as well. We have Bangladesh is the country of focus this time, so we have a filmmaker from Bangladesh, Tanveer Muhammad as well. His film is also screened today at IFFI. First to you, Mr. Mutton, in terms of how IFFI has come together despite the pandemic, this time you've been able to do your work as well, and that must have been challenging in itself. You have to select, crystallize just a few films from so many, and this time of course some of that work was done remotely as well. So how did that happen?
I think first one has to be grateful and thankful to the Government of India, the Information Ministry, the Directorate of Film Festivals, and IFFI for having the the gumption or the defiance, or you want to call it, I would say the
gumption.
Just
the spirit to do it.
Spirit to do something in this time of pandemic, which most countries have not. So they have to be first congratulated, the directorate and all these people, for having to resolve this and do it. And that set the spirit for us, 12 jury members and me, to come in and do our job. And I think it was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience, because otherwise we would be sitting at home.
Yeah. And in case of you, Sandeep, your film shot over 25 days in Lucknow, but a totally Austrian unit, Austrian-Indian production. And how did it come to IFFI, then a world premiere here today?
Oh, that was a dream. We made the film. It's an Austrian production, as you said. We shot it entirely in Lucknow. It's with Lucknow artists. It's with the legendary Farrokh Jaffer. We did the film over here. It took a long time to do the post-production, was entirely in Austria. And then the pandemic broke out. So we were then waiting for it to clear up. But my dream personally, because I'm from Delhi but now based in Vienna, Austria, my dream was to have a world premiere somewhere in India. And somehow, we dodged other festivals like Cannes and Berlin, and we, this dream was fulfilled now that we got an opportunity. We were selected here, and it's emotionally very important for me that we are having a world premiere over here. So this is what we wished for, and the dream came true.
Wonderful. It is a big moment for people here as well. And Mr. Mukammel, your film being here as part of Country of Focus for Bangladesh, how has been the experience in the first place? Just tell us about that.
Actually, first I would like to thank the Festival Authority to organize this focus, Bangladesh as a focus country. I think which could have been a more befitting time than this year, because this is the 50 years of liberation war of Bangladesh and also the 50 years of diplomatic ties between India and Bangladesh. So we are very happy to come here. I reckon 9 Bangladeshi films will be screening. 2 of those are from my film unit, and 1 was screened today as the inauguration film. We are very happy to come here.
Wonderful. And Mr. Mutton, in terms of again selecting those 20 films that you did from 180 odd, considering the challenge of the pandemic as well, how easy or difficult was it? Because you have to keep so many different criteria in mind.
Well, it was not that difficult. We were 12 members, and we had 4 panels of 3 members each.
Okay.
And the 180 films were divided. So 45 films. Each of the panels watched 45 films, and they had to choose from them 15 films. So ultimately 60 films were watched by the entire jury.
Wow.
And then we decided, and it was by vote, and I can tell you this, it was a democratic way of choosing. No kind of influence of any kind. We would mention a film's name and hands would go up, and we would choose. And based on the number of hands that went up, it was statistical, and it was totally democratic. I really had no job in that sense because the numbers decided. And it went out without any kind of dispute. It was very smooth. And we were very happy. And at the end of it, because the results came out without any kind of dispute or any kind of controversy. So I think that was wonderful.
Great. And Sandeep, in terms of being an ambassador of cinema, so to speak, you've shot a film in India, you're based in Austria, and the subject itself is so fascinating. Who would have thought that you could cast and in fact conceive of a film with the central character, an 88-year-old lady?
I was a great admirer of her, and when I started writing this script, I had her in mind. I thought that the only one who could pull this kind of a story off would be Farrukh Jafar. I mean, I've seen her films starting from Umrao Jan as Rekha's mother, as Amma in Peoply Life. I've seen her, also in other films doing supportive roles. And I thought that, she would be ideal for this film, but I wasn't sure whether she would do it, because at 88, doing a lead role for the first time, after being in the film industry for over 4 decades. So, I just wrote the script, and I went to her, and I flew down to Lucknow, and I was very nervous if she would say no. And she just heard the narration, didn't say anything, and then after, when the narration was over, she said, "Hum karenge." And she said, "Hum karenge." And so I flew back to Austria, and I spoke to my team, and they said, "What did she say?" And I told them, she said, "Hum karenge." So she said, "What do you mean, hum karenge? That is like plural." I said, "That's how they speak in Lucknow." So they were very thrilled, and I thought if she's ready to do it, then we should pull it off, because it was 25 days on the sets with her age, so we had to plan out a lot. She was in a lot of frames, and so I was pretty nervous. I mean, I didn't get a chance to speak to any of her, co-actors or with her directors, so I didn't know how I'm going to do it. But she's so professional, and I think I feel she is the most underrated actor over here, because she's so fantastic to work with.
I think you're a very lucky guy to be able to have got her for your film.
We are very blessed that she did this film, and I think that is going to be a highlight of my life, doing a film with her. And believe me, on the sets, when she's on the set, she forgets where the camera is, she forgets where the lights are. She's totally in the scene. So that is a boon for any director to have her, and it's just great.
Mr. Mukammal, let's talk about India-Bangladesh. We are neighbors, our relationships are moving forward at a very rapid pace, especially when you look at connectivity. And people-to-people connection is a big part of that. In cinema, does it, I think, better than anything else, when you have to connect people of 2 different countries, 2 different cultures. And culturally here, we have a lot of intermingling as well. So where do you think the future lies for India-Bangladesh in cinema?
We have so many commonalities. We are South Asian, we have a common culture, common heritage, common history. In other sectors, there is much change, but unfortunately not much in cinema. But there were some agreements.
But now moving forward, there's going to be a co-production as well.
Not always very successful, unfortunately, because those who only tried to do in the money motive, those co-productions never succeeded, never really took off. But I think if someone goes with a more open mind and more the cultural heritage in mind, then things may work. I can give you one example that recently, this is all the 100 years of the birth centenary of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the father of nation of Bangladesh. So a film is being made, kind of joint production, you can say, Bangladesh Indian government, and Indian filmmaker Shyam Benegal is making the film. It's a biopic, quite in a very larger canvas. So this could be a good example how the both countries can go together. But problem, the relationship between the governments always don't remain that smooth, because they have sometimes other priorities. They have been a little lackluster in their approach. So it is the cultural people who should come forward and make the bond more strong. And I think you're very right. Cinema can be a very good avenue to bring the bond together.
Relationships do stay on course as well. That's the consistency that one has, especially in foreign relations. We've seen India do it in Bangladesh too as well, and let's hope that sustains. And as far as the way cinema is evolving, now you have this minimization of the screen that is going on. From the big screen, it's coming to the palm, and the pandemic has forced that change to a lot of extent as well. But do you think that's the way things will go further on as well, and cinema will have to think creatively a bit differently as well, or once, you know, vaccines are being rolled out as well, so do you think it'll be back to normal for cinema as well pretty soon?
I don't think so, because a spectacle is a spectacle. And it cannot get small, it has to get larger. The more you are in awe of a screen and you see it, and that spectacle actually involves you, in the palm it's not going to happen. Unless there's some visual technology that comes in, that enhances it from your palm into a large screen.
It could be VR type
devices. You could have a small device that can be projected in front of you, where it kind of virtually, you're seeing something which you would have experienced. But I think the basic enjoyment of a film is collective. Because when you see a film in a theatre with other people there, the reactions make a difference to you.
Yes.
It's not just your reaction. You see people laughing, you see people getting scared. All that matters. And you can't drive that away. No pandemic is going to do that. Because we are a collective force. We are not individuals. When it comes to viewing, we react. So that is, I feel psychologically, that is not going to change.
Collective emotion, it has a different power.
Yeah, it has a different power and a different enjoyment. And people watch films to enjoy it. So that is, I don't think that's going to change.
Okay. What do you make of this change that is coming, here to stay, not stay, good that it stays, bad that it stays?
You know, I completely 110% I agree with what he says, that it's not just about the information, it's not just about the content. It's like, you know, you have 500,000 people, or in Europe maybe lesser, collectively sitting in a dark room, watching things on the big screen, having that emotion, you know. It's all about that. That is what cinema is, at least for me as a filmmaker. So it's not just about the content. Obviously, I think it will remain, it will increase because there's a lot of consumption. But that's not what, you know, we as filmmakers want. You know, I love to see us, you know, in a bigger screen. And back there in Austria, they were like, when I was posting on the Facebook, they said, oh my God, this is heaven, you're there. So it's opening up. So I think that way we can really, and I mean, you've shown it with this festival over here, how it can be done. And it's marvelous with the lights and, you know, film festivals. So that is something different. You can't substitute cinema with seeing a film on your mobile phone. I mean, you can consume it, but you can't, it doesn't involve you, as he was saying. So I think it will remain, maybe it becomes bigger, because people couldn't go to the cinema halls. I think when it opens up, they'll rush to the cinema hall, they'll rush to go back, see that.
Yeah, there's been talk of revenge tourism. It could be revenge cinema consumption as well, and entertainment consumption. And cinema goes beyond entertainment, Tanveer Mukammal Sahab, doesn't it? And it's evolving in that direction as well. More and more films we see which carry a message apart from, you know, entertaining. And do you think that is a trend that will again sustain? We'll have more and more relevant cinema to the times in the coming days?
Of all art forms, cinema is the most social kind of social art form. It requires a group of people to make a film, and it's meant for a community, and so nothing like appreciation by a community. So we target an audience, not an individual, as Mr. Matthew said very correctly. But I think I am very optimistic about the future. Maybe pandemic is a setback, but we shouldn't get awed by it, not paranoid by it. I think I'm very happy that IFFI took this courageous decision to hold the film festival even in these trying times. So when we are young, you know, we are very much in Beatles songs. So I still remember there was a song called Oh Bloody, life goes on. So life has to go on, and what could be a better way of keep the life going than organize a film festival?
Life is definitely going on. It's going on smashingly right now in Goa. That's what we can say about IFFI right now. Just the second day, quite a few more days to go, quite a lot to come for all those who love films, and we can all look forward to it, to bring it to our viewers as well through this medium, Munmun.
Well, thank you for that engaging
thank you
conversation in Goa.
Thanks,
Gautam, for that.
1 second. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Well, the 20th of January after the election year is the time of plausible excitement and anticipation in the United States. Excitement for the new innings of the president who will take oath on 20th, with people anticipating changes that will bring them joy and happiness following the new beginning instead The US is in a state of unprecedented security alert and lockdown. That too due to the threat of supporters of the outgoing president. The scenes in Washington, D.C. confirm that the nation is indeed preparing for every eventuality ahead of January 20 Inauguration Day.
Washington, D.C. was locked down and U.S. law enforcement officials geared up for pro-Trump marches in all 50 state capitals this weekend, erecting barriers and deploying thousands of National Guard troops to try to prevent the kind of violent attack that rattled the nation on January 6. Security continued to be strengthened around Washington, D.C. on Saturday as tensions run high of possible threats ahead of the January 20 inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden. Around the White House, multiple roads have been closed while business tenants have boarded up their shops. All the roads leading to the inauguration venue are guarded by federal law enforcement officers, police and vehicles from the National Guard. Parking has been prohibited on the roads from Saturday night to January 23. From Saturday, people have to pass through strict security checks when heading to Pennsylvania Avenue, a street linking the White House and the Capitol, as well as the venue where the inauguration will take place. The Capitol building, which used to be a public area, is also surrounded by security fencing with police officers on duty to keep people away. The intense security presence has made some residents in the nation's capital concerned and sad.
This sorrow and this tragedy. And we, the United States, can never allow this to happen again. It's the biggest security threat, internal domestic security threat we've ever had since our Civil War. Of course, I think that's a huge security threat.
The FBI warned police agencies of possible armed protests outside all 50 state capitol buildings starting Saturday through President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20, fueled by supporters of President Donald Trump, who believe his false claims of electoral fraud. Michigan, Virginia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania and Washington were among states that activated their National Guards to strengthen security. Texas closed its capital through Inauguration Day. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
And in cricket news, India ended day 3 of the Brisbane Test on a high thanks to the century stand between Shardul Thakur and Washington Sundar, who bailed India out of trouble and in the process registered their maiden Test 50s. Australia took a 54-run lead against India on day 3 of the ongoing 4th Test match at the Gabba in Brisbane. The hosts were 21 for no loss in 6 overs at stumps, with David Warner at 20 and Marcus Harris, the two unbeaten batsmen. On that note, we come to the close of this edition of Newsnight. Thanks for watching.